this lesson is over section 1.5. It's going to be measuring and constructing angles. So before we get into that, we're going to talk about a couple of things, prior knowledge of angles, things that we should already know. So the first thing is acute. So that is a term that you should be familiar with. An acute angle is one that is less than 90 degrees. Okay, so those are a little bit smaller. Right, we've been talking about those. Right angles are equal to 90 degrees. Those are the ones that when we write them, they've got the little box in here. And then obtuse is greater than 90, but it's also less than 180. So it does have limitations. It's not just any angle that's bigger than 90. We kind of say that, but we forget about the fact that there is a limitation there. And then a straight angle is equal to 180 degrees. So obtuse is going to be in the section that's bigger than 90, but less than 180. And so we'll talk about angles that are bigger than 180. I think I said that backwards, greater than 90, less than 180. We're talking about angles that are bigger than 180, but that'll be in when we talk about circles. So we'll talk about those a little bit later. So the next thing we're going to move on to is writing an angle. And so when we write an angle, first of all, this right here is the angle symbol. So if anytime you see this, this means an angle. Some people write it like this. So either one of these is correct. I typically just do the little nose and I don't put the little loop on it, but both of them are correct. When we write an angle, we need to have 3 capital letters. So 3 capital letters, and it has to have that angle mark in front of it. If it was just 3 capital letters, someone might think we're talking about a plane, when we talked about that early on in this chapter. And so if I have this angle, also one way that I can help people remember it, because this is kind of a little bit of a confusing concept for people, is to think about your hand. So let's say this is a finger, and then this is my thumb. This is my hand here. It's a terrible hand. Anyways, this right here is called the web, that little fleshy part of your hand. So we actually spell the word web like this. And so I have to start at this finger, come down here to the where the web is, and then back to the B, and that's called a web. So that's the same thing what we're doing here. I have to start at a point out here, go back to that angle, and then back out to another point. So this angle that I just traced right here would be called angle AOB. And I can't just call it one letter. I can't just call this angle O, because there's actually 3 angles here. There's this measurement right here. And then if I come over here and say BOC, that's another measurement right there. And then I have this really big angle right here, AOC, this big one right here. And so there's actually 3 angles here. And so we need to be sure that we're telling someone which angle we're referring to, we're very clear. And so that's why we use the 3 letters. We'll talk about reading a protractor here in a minute. And then we're going to talk about the angle addition postulate. So if I look at, I'm going to clear all my ink here. If I look at this picture right here, okay, let's say that this right here is 42 degrees and this is 30 degrees. That means the big angle from A to O to C, that right there, would be if I add those 2 angles together. So angle AOB, plus angle BOC equals angle AOC. So 42, that's 42, plus 30, that would equal the big angle, which is 72. So it goes back to that segment addition postulate that we talked about before. All right, so I'm going to clear this and go to the next slide. All right, so again, this is just going to practice like reading these angles. If I was to ask you, get to a pen, let's say I'll put a 31 here and I'll put a 20 here. So if I asked you, what is the measure of angle AOB? Okay, I'm talking about from A to O to B. And so you look inside here, and this measurement right here is angle AOB. And so that would be 31 degrees. And these will be marked for us. If I was going to use a protractor to read this, so here, let's pretend like I got a protractor right here. That's a terrible protractor. Anyways, they have a set of numbers. So this is 0, and then they'll go 5, 10, and they'll go all the way up here to 90. And then they also, and so it goes all the way over here to 180. So that's the first row. Then they have a second row right here, and they're going to start at 0 and 5 and going back this direction. So it really depends on where your angle is. So if I was to lay here's my angle, and I lay my protractor on top of this, I would read from this direction up. And so whatever I find right here, that's going to give me my measurement for my protractor. So let's say 10, 20, 30, 40, say this is 50 right here. Then that means that this angle would be 50 degrees. So that's how I would read my protractor. Let's say though my angle, instead of pointing out to the right, it's pointing to the left. That's when I start reading the numbers at the top. So if I'm reading this direction, left up from the left side, I'm reading the outer ring. If I'm reading the right side up, I'm reading the inner ring of this. Okay. All right, clear that. Go on. So let's do a couple of these together. So we'll start off pretty basic. BOA. So we can say them in any order. So BOA or AOB are the same exact angle. Notice the O is in the middle. So if I start at B, trace over here to O, A, this is the measurement it's talking about. So this is 45. And then if I start, the second one is COB. So I start at C, go back to O, over to B. That's 23. And so the question is wanting angle AOC, the big angle right here. Like how much is all of this right here? So I just add those two together. So 45 plus 23. And so then just add that, and that's 68 degrees. Okay. We'll also have to do a little bit of algebra. So let me get an eraser here. All right, oops. Okay, so let's say I have AOB, which is 3x plus 14. So 3x plus 14. And then BOC, which is 2x plus 8. These two angles added together, this one plus this one, equals the big angle, which happens to be 7x minus 2. So I've got 3x plus 14 plus 2x plus 8 equals 7x minus 2. And so now I'm ready to solve. So I don't have any distribution. I'm doing Dad Can Pick Chocolate Muffins. And so there's no distribution. There is cleanup, so I can clean this up right here. So that's going to be 5x plus 22 equals 7x minus 2. I can pick on the little guy, so I'm going to do minus 5x minus 5x. So 22 equals 2x minus 2. Add 2 to both sides. So I've got 24 is equal to 2x. And then divide x is equal to 12. Okay. Now be sure we always read what it's asking for. This happened to be asking for x, so I'm done. I can stop right there. However, if it actually asked me for one of these angle measurements, let's say it asked for angle AOB, then I'm going to have to take this 12 and I have to plug it back into my problem. So I would have 3 times 12 plus 14. So I've got 36 plus 14. And so then add those together, and I have 50 degrees. So that means that this measure right here would be 50 degrees. I'd plug it in here to find out this one down here, and then I could add the two together to get the big angle. So that is the first part of 1.5. There'll be a second video, but we're going to stop there.